Hello, Pokey here, and I kind of wanted to touch base a little bit on filling gaps in models. There's a lot of things out there. You can use like some of the thicker super glues, other items. But what I'm going to be filling the gaps on the Rhinodon here, because I was just recently gifted a Rhinodon. So to fill its gaps, you know, like across its back plates, here, around the tail, you know, up in the arm joints, on both sides. For that, I'm going to use green stuff, blue stuff, gray stuff. It's pretty much a two-part epoxy putty. That you can use that is moldable at first, and then after it dries, it hardens. It hardens into like a plastic. It's interesting the way it works. But you have the two pieces here. You know, it's actually two separate pieces. They're kind of stuck there in the middle. What you end up doing is you'll end up cutting two pieces of it, equal pieces. Because if you use too much of one over the other, it'll either harden too fast or it'll stay soft for too long. Both not really optimal if you're trying to get something like a gap filled. So once you cut off the equal amounts, you kind of mix them and play with them. One key thing to know when you work with green stuff, gray stuff, whatever the epoxy is, always make sure you have water. I like to use warm water. I think warm water helps kind of keep it soft a little bit longer, but water works really well to keep it from sticking to you and to your tools. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause the camera just long enough for me to get all the stuff I need prepped and some of this stuff cut off, and I'll show you guys how it looks when I'm mixing it, and then we'll talk some more about tools and how to fill gaps. All right, back. The nice thing about the stuff that comes in the kits is that it has a nice little plastic wrap on it. So you gotta make sure you get that plastic wrap off there. I leave it on there until after I cut it, and then when I get ready to use it, I will take it. As you can see here, I will then dip my hands in the water, well, just the fingers anyways, and then just proceed to start to knead it, just to get it to where it has a nice mix to it. Not too much yellow on one side or blue. It's actually kind of the fun part. You want to make sure you keep it in your hands thoroughly wet, because you don't want it to dry up on you. Now, you have a wide range of tools you can use for when you go to mold this stuff into the gaps. You can use an X-Acto knife. You can use a popsicle stick. The end of an old a pencil, a brass rod. I mean, pretty much paper clip, fingernail, nail. The actual sculpting tools they have. But it kind of all depends on how much what you're looking for. How much you're actually looking to do with it. If you're not, if you're just looking to fill a couple gaps, you don't have to go out and buy you don't have to go out and buy the big expensive kits. You can, the big sculpting kits and the shaper kits, the silicone tipped kits, something like this, which these are really nice if you ever try to do any kind of molding, or actually I'll probably use these today when I'm filling in some of the gaps to help smooth the gaps, help remove my fingerprints. But what I'm going to do is, okay, so now I got them all nice and mixed, looking relatively uniform and green. So my water here, I tend to, I'll tear off a little bit, I'm gonna use, I'll put the rest of it in the water. Where, how else you don't keep it, extremely moist, except for if you put it in the water. So now I have a little bit of water here on my little board here. Take a little bit. And I mean, you start out with your hands. I mean, it's not like it's, you don't want to eat this stuff, but it's not going to hurt you any. So I'm going to kind of roll it out a little bit, thin it to where it'll help go where I need it. And so for this first part, I'm going to put it across his back here. Now, you're noticing that I'm not an expert at this by any means. I'm not a professional green stuffer. I'm not a sculptor. I'm just a guy who doesn't like gaps in his models. So I'm going to just kind of push the putty around using the tool, of course, using one of the tools I have. When I first started using green stuff, I was actually using my X-Acto knife for this, which is not a bad thing. It's, got a point, it's got an edge, makes it nice to, get it where you normally want to get it. Some of the bigger areas you can use like a back of a paintbrush to get what you need. And what we're going to do now, through the magic of editing, I'm going to keep this going and speed up the camera, and then when I get done with the tail and the back plates, I'll slow down. We'll slow it back down again and go over what we're doing. Alright, so I got up to where I wanted to for the back plates, because when you get up here it kind of helps blend back in. Once you get the paint in there, you'll never really notice it. I just wanted to get the bigger gaps that were further down on his back. So I'll probably start to fill in a little bit here, going across the side there. But for what you're looking at here across the spine, it doesn't look as bad as it did before. Now, if you notice, it's not really all that smooth down here, down here at the bottom, and that's because, well, his back isn't that smooth. But I will go back through and do some smoothing out to try to help make it to where it blends in a little bit better with what's already there. I'll probably bring out the actually no, you know what, it's actually not looking too bad right there. Just gotta get smooth a little bit, smooth a little bit, smooth a little bit, like that. And yeah, I'm adding a little bit extra here, but I think I'm just trying to blend in this kind of messed up area. Do I have to put that much on there? No, not really. Just something to kind of fill in on. And then on the underside of the tail, it's the nice thing about the way that they had sculpted him is I can fill in this gap and smooth it as much as I possibly can. Like this, to where it filled in most of the gaps. And then I take the sharp end of the little thing here and I can just kind of cut lines in, you know, because you got the tail here that has the lines, the belly has lines. So just kind of sculpt in some lines. Don't go overboard because you don't want it to have too many more than what the other one does, but you definitely want it to have some to where it helps kind of blend it in. You kind of do that across the same side, same thing on the tail. And that's pretty much the back side. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of the back piece here, you know, that we see across the side. And then I'm going to move up to the arms, and then we'll go from there. One thing I will tell you, that when you're working with this stuff, water, or sometimes you'll hear people talk about like petroleum jelly or some other kind of lubricant. Cannot stress it enough. It is very important to have as much. Well, you want to have a lot, but you don't want to have too much. You want to make sure that there's enough there that it doesn't stick to your tool, but enough, or not enough, to where it'll not adhere to the model itself. I actually don't mind working on these Rhinodons, because actually, you know, the gaps are pretty big, but the model itself isn't overly smooth. So any imperfections you may have in the green stuffing, not really noticeable. Maybe a little bit tougher to do when you're dealing with, like, I don't know, maybe like if you're trying to gap fill some ret models, because they will, because they're, you know, all smooth and futuristic, and yeah, it's supposed to be all smooth and stuff. Pretty much did all the work I need to do on the Rhinodon for green stuffing. You know, filled in the leg gap there, both arm gaps, the back, the tail. One key thing when you're working with green stuff, other than keeping things moist, you know, the tools and the green stuff moist, one thing to remember is to make sure you don't touch it after you're done with it, because you will get your fingerprints in there, and then it just kind of messes the whole thing up. I just noticed that I needed to smooth something out right here. Typically green stuff, if mixed properly, you tend to have, I don't know, probably 30 or so minutes to 30 minutes to an hour to get it to do what you need it to do, to, you know, to make it to where it's still moldable, pliable, get it to where you need it to, and sculpt it. Once you get towards the end of its usefulness, it will get gummy and really hard to make adjustments to. So that's that. And thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed.
If you enjoyed this Advanced Maneuvers hobby content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let us know what future tips and tricks and hobby-related materials you would like to see. Don't forget, it just takes one brushstroke to keep getting better.